What I'm about to tell you sounds like something out of a movie, but I swear on everything I hold dear, this actually happened to me. My name is Mark, and this is the story of how my cheating ex-wife thought she could destroy my life, marry her affair partner 1 week after our divorce, and get away with it all. But let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand just how calculated and cruel this woman really was. I thought I had the perfect marriage. Jessica and I had been together for 7 years, and I genuinely believed we were soulmates. She was this stunning, ambitious real estate agent who could charm anyone within 5 minutes of meeting them. Me? I'm just a regular guy who owns a construction company. Nothing fancy, but honest work that pays well. Before I dive into how she nearly ruined my life and how I turned the tables, do me one favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because trust me, by the time you hear the full story, you'll want to see how it all ends. Looking back, I can see the red flags I ignored. But when you love someone, you make excuses for things that should have been warnings. It started with the phone calls. Jessica had always been social, but suddenly she was getting urgent work calls at 10 p.m., stepping outside to take them in private. When I'd ask about it, she'd give me this look like I was being paranoid. "Mark, you wouldn't understand," she'd say with that condescending tone I was starting to hate. Real estate isn't a 9 to 5 job like construction. Important clients don't keep normal hours. Then came the mysterious work trips. Every other weekend, Jessica had to travel for big clients who wanted to see properties in different cities. She'd come back with stories about fancy hotels and expensive dinners, always paid for by these mysterious wealthy clients. But here's what really should have tipped me off. She never brought back business cards, never mentioned specific company names, and somehow these big deals never actually closed. The breaking point came on a Tuesday evening in March. I'd gotten home early from a job site, which was rare for me, and decided to surprise Jessica with takeout from her favorite Italian restaurant. You know, trying to be the romantic husband. I walked into our house, calling her name, expecting maybe we'd have a nice dinner together for once. Instead, I heard her voice coming from our bedroom, soft and intimate in a way she hadn't spoken to me in months. "I know. Baby, I miss you too," she was saying. "No, he's still at work. He never gets home before 8. My blood turned to ice. I stood there in our hallway, holding containers of chicken parmesan, listening to my wife talk to another man like I didn't exist. But what she said next absolutely destroyed me. "I can't wait until we don't have to sneak around anymore. Soon, I promise. Once I figure out how to handle the Mark situation, we can be together properly." The Mark situation. That's what 7 years of marriage had become to her. A situation to be handled. I backed out of the house as quietly as I'd entered, my hands shaking so badly I could barely start my truck. I drove around for 3 hours that night, trying to process what I'd heard. Part of me wanted to storm right back in there and confront her, but something told me to be smart about this. That something probably saved my life, financially speaking. When I finally came home, Jessica was in the kitchen acting like nothing had happened. "Oh, good. You're home," she said without even looking up from her laptop. I already ate. Long day showing properties to difficult clients. I studied her face, looking for any sign of guilt. Nothing. She was as composed as ever, like she hadn't just been planning our divorce with her lover an hour earlier. "How was your day?" I asked, testing her. "Exhausting. Had 3 showings, 2 difficult clients, and Brad needed help with some complicated paperwork for a major listing." Brad. There was the name I'd been dreading to hear. I'd met Brad Williams once at Jessica's company Christmas party. Mid-30s, recently divorced, drove a flashy BMW that probably cost more than most people make in a year. He'd seemed overly friendly with Jessica that night, but I convinced myself it was just workplace friendliness. Now his name made me want to punch a wall. "Brad seems to need a lot of help lately," I said carefully, watching her reaction. Jessica glanced up, and for just a split second, I saw something flicker across her face. Panic? Guilt? But it was gone so fast I might have imagined it. "He's going through a difficult time," she said. "His divorce was messy, and he's struggling to manage his client load alone. I'm just being a supportive colleague." A supportive colleague, right? That night, lying in bed next to her, I made a decision that probably saved me from financial ruin. If Jessica was planning to handle the Mark situation, I needed to understand exactly what that meant. The next morning, after Jessica left for work, I called my college buddy Tom. He'd become a successful divorce attorney, and if anyone could help me navigate this nightmare, it was him. "Mark, what's going on?" Tom's voice was warm but concerned. "I need to ask you something confidential. If someone wanted to divorce me and take half my business, what would that look like?" The silence on the other end was deafening. "Mark," Tom said slowly, "are you and Jessica having problems? Just hypothetically, what would someone need to do?" Tom sighed. "Hypothetically, they'd file for irreconcilable differences with your business. They'd argue it's marital property that grew during the marriage. They could potentially claim up to 50% plus alimony if they could prove they sacrificed their career to support yours." My heart sank. Jessica had always complained that she could have made more money if she hadn't had to accommodate my schedule and business needs. But, Tom continued, there are ways to protect yourself, especially if there's adultery involved. Courts don't like cheaters, even in no-fault states. It affects alimony, property division. What kind of proof would someone need? Photos, communications, financial records showing money spent on the affair, witness testimony. The more evidence, the better. That afternoon, I did something I never thought I'd do. I bought a small digital recorder and a GPS tracker. If Jessica was planning to destroy our marriage, I wasn't going down without a fight. What I discovered over the next few weeks was worse than I could have imagined. The GPS tracker in Jessica's car revealed that her late showings were actually dinner dates at expensive restaurants across town. Her weekend work trips perfectly coincided with Brad's own mysterious business travel. But the real smoking gun came when I finally gained access to our phone records. Jessica had been sloppy, texting Brad from a regular number, probably thinking I'd never think to check. The messages I found didn't just break my heart. They made me physically sick. "Once I get half of Mark's business, we can start that real estate development firm we talked about," one message read. Asterisk, he's so clueless about everything. Still thinks I'm working late. Asterisk. Asterisk, my lawyer says I should document how his work schedule has limited my career growth. Building the case for maximum alimony. Asterisk, they weren't just having an affair. They were systematically planning to destroy my life and use the pieces to build their own empire. But here's the message that changed everything. Asterisk, Mark's too nice to fight back. Even if he suspected something, he'd never have the balls to actually do anything about it. This is going to be easier than we thought. Asterisk, too nice. That's what Jessica thought of me. She mistook my kindness for weakness, my love for stupidity. That's when I realized I'd been approaching this all wrong. I've been thinking like a heartbroken husband when I should have been thinking like a businessman. And in business, you don't just react to threats. You anticipate them and plan your counterattack. Over the next 2 months, I became someone I barely recognized. Every morning, I'd kiss Jessica goodbye like nothing was wrong, then spend my day methodically documenting her lies with the precision I usually reserved for construction blueprints. I recorded conversations. I photographed evidence. I traced financial transactions. I built a case against my own wife like I was preparing for war, because that's exactly what I was doing. The conversation I recorded on May 15th was the final piece I needed. So your lawyer thinks we should wait until after summer to file? Jessica's voice was crystal clear through my headphones as I sat in my truck, listening to the recording from her car. "Yeah, baby," Brad's voice made my skin crawl. "Give us time to document more of his controlling behavior and how it's affected your career. Plus, his business always slows down in winter. Better to strike when his assets are at their peak value." Jessica actually laughed. God, he has no clue. Still thinks I'm his devoted little wife. Yesterday, he asked if I wanted to plan a vacation for our anniversary. What did you tell him? That I'd think about it. Might as well let him pay for one last romantic getaway before I take him for everything he's worth. I had to pull over and compose myself. This woman I'd loved for 7 years was discussing my destruction like she was planning a grocery list. But then Brad said something that sealed both their fates. "What happens if he finds out before we're ready?" "He won't," Jessica replied confidently. "Mark's not smart enough to figure it out. Besides, even if he did suspect something, he'd never have the balls to do anything about it. He's too nice for his own good." Too nice. There was that phrase again. That's when I smiled for the first time in months. Because Jessica was about to learn the difference between being nice and being weak. Armed with months of evidence, I knew I had enough to destroy both Jessica and Brad in court. But Tom, my lawyer friend, had a better idea. "Mark, we could expose them right now and win the divorce easily," he told me during one of our secret strategy meetings. "But I think we can do something even better. Something that will make them destroy themselves." "What do you mean?" Tom leaned back in his chair with a devious smile. "What if we let them think their plan is working perfectly? Let Jessica file for divorce on her timeline, make all her ridiculous demands, and then we show the world who she really is." That's when Tom explained the patient man strategy. Instead of confronting Jessica immediately, we would let her make the first move. We'd let her feel confident, even cocky, about her chances. And then, when she was most vulnerable, we'd pull the rug out from under her. But first, we needed to set a trap. "I want you to do something that might feel wrong," Tom told me. "Start being the perfect husband again. Flowers, date nights, romantic gestures. Make her panic." Why would I do that? Because right now, Jessica thinks she's in complete control. But if you suddenly become attentive and loving, she'll worry that you're suspicious. Panicked people make mistakes. So that's exactly what I did. I started bringing Jessica flowers for no reason. I planned surprise date nights at expensive restaurants. I talked about renewing our vows for our upcoming anniversary. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Within a week, Jessica's text to Brad became frantic. I watched her paranoia grow through the messages I was intercepting. Asterisk, something's wrong. Mark's being too nice. What if he knows? Asterisk, asterisk, he wants to renew our vows. I'm freaking out. We need to speed this up. Asterisk, asterisk, I can't keep pretending to love him. It's making me sick. Asterisk, perfect. Jessica was cracking under the pressure. The final piece of evidence I needed came when Jessica made a crucial mistake. Panicked by my sudden attention, she got sloppy with her lies. I came home from work one evening to find her on another private call in our bedroom. But this time, she didn't notice me standing in the doorway with my phone, recording everything. "I can't do this anymore, Brad," she was saying, pacing like a caged animal. "Living with him, pretending to care about him, it's torture. And now he wants to renew our vows? It's like the universe is punishing me for something." "Baby, calm down." Brad's voice came through her speaker. "We stick to the plan. File papers next month. And by Christmas we'll be free to start a new life together." "What if he fights the divorce?" Brad laughed, actually laughed. "With what? The guy's about as threatening as a golden retriever. Besides, Jennifer guarantees she can get you full alimony plus half his business." Jennifer. That was Jessica's lawyer, and apparently Brad's ex-girlfriend. The web of deception ran even deeper than I'd realized. "She's absolutely sure?" Jessica asked. Positive. She says guys like Mark always fold when faced with real legal pressure. He'll settle just to avoid the embarrassment of a public divorce battle. By July, I had enough evidence to not only win my divorce, but potentially send both Jessica and Brad to prison for fraud. Tom was practically giddy with excitement. Mark, when this is over, Jessica won't just lose the divorce. She'll lose her real estate license and face criminal charges for conspiracy to commit fraud. And Brad. Oh, Brad's in even deeper trouble. Using his relationship with Jessica to plan a competing business using your trade secrets? That's corporate espionage. He's looking at serious jail time. But the beautiful part wasn't just that I was going to win. It was that I was going to let them destroy themselves completely. On a Thursday morning in August, Jessica finally made her move. We need to talk when you get home tonight, she texted me. Important. This was it. After months of preparation, Jessica was ready to spring her trap. What she didn't know was that she was walking straight into mine. That evening, I found Jessica sitting at our kitchen table like she was conducting a board meeting. Her car was packed with boxes. She wasn't just planning to ask for a divorce. She was planning to leave that same night. I'm not happy, Mark, she began, launching into what was obviously a rehearsed speech. I haven't been happy for a long time. We want different things from life. I listened as she rewrote the history of our marriage, painting me as a controlling husband who had held back her career ambitions. Every word was calculated to build her case for maximum alimony. So what are you saying? I asked, playing dumb. I think we should separate. I've already talked to a lawyer about our options. There it was. Jessica had already talked to a lawyer, except I knew she'd been planning this with Jennifer for months. And you've already packed, I observed, nodding toward her car. For the first time, Jessica looked uncomfortable. I thought if we decided to do this, it would be better if I left tonight. Where will you stay? I found a temporary rental, she lied smoothly. I knew she'd be staying at Brad's downtown condo, but I let her keep lying. Here's where Jessica made her biggest mistake. She expected me to fight, to beg, to make a scene. Instead, I said the 4 words that completely threw her off script. Okay, if that's what you want. Jessica blinked in confusion. Just like that. What did you expect? That I'd force you to stay in a marriage you don't want? She looked genuinely shocked. This wasn't the reaction she'd planned for. I thought you'd be more upset. I am upset, but I'm not going to make this harder than it has to be. Jessica left that night looking confused and almost disappointed. She'd wanted drama, maybe even wanted me to beg her to stay. What she got was calm acceptance, and it clearly bothered her. 11 days later, Jessica filed for divorce. The papers were everything Tom and I had expected and more. She wasn't asking for half of everything. She was demanding it all. Full alimony, half my business, even our house. Her sworn affidavit painted me as an abusive, controlling monster who had destroyed her career and mental health. Reading those lies was like looking into an alternate reality where I was the villain. This is perfect, Tom said when I showed him the papers. She's claiming emotional distress and career sabotage. Every single claim is going to backfire when we present our evidence. But we didn't respond immediately. We let Jessica think she was winning. For 3 months, I played the part of the defeated husband. I agreed to temporary spousal support. I let them freeze some of my business accounts. Jessica was getting cocky, telling people she was going to take Mark for everything he had. Meanwhile, Tom and I were preparing what he called the nuclear option. In November, my sister Lisa called with interesting news. Mark, I just saw Jessica at the mall. She was shopping for wedding dresses. Wedding dresses? With some guy in a BMW. When she saw me, she looked terrified. But get this, she introduced him as her fiancé. Jessica was planning her wedding to Brad while our divorce was still pending. She'd set the date for February 14th. 1 week after our divorce was scheduled to be finalized. Tom was ecstatic, planning a wedding while claiming to be traumatized by marriage, while asking for permanent alimony because she's too damaged to work. She's destroying her own credibility. In January, Jessica made one final, fatal mistake. She got greedy. Her lawyer filed a motion claiming I'd been hiding assets and demanding access to 5 years of my business records. Jessica wanted to squeeze every last penny out of me. That's when Tom finally pulled the trigger. She just gave us legal permission to expose everything, he told me with a wicked grin. On February 1st, 6 days before our divorce was supposed to be finalized, Tom filed our countersuit. It was 47 pages of pure destruction. What happened in that courtroom on February 5th will stay with me for the rest of my life. We didn't just respond to Jessica's claims. We obliterated them with evidence. Screenshots of her text planning to take Mark for everything he's worth. Photos of her with Brad during times she claimed to be too emotionally devastated to work. Bank records showing she'd systematically stolen money from our joint accounts to fund her affair. But the masterpiece was the recorded conversations. Hours of Jessica and Brad plotting their future, discussing how to maximize her divorce settlement, and laughing about how stupid and clueless I was. The judge scheduled an emergency hearing for February 5th, 2 days before our divorce was supposed to be final, and exactly 9 days before Jessica's planned Valentine's Day wedding. Walking into that courtroom, seeing Jessica's face when Tom started playing those recordings, I'll never forget it. The color drained from her cheeks as her own voice filled the room, casually discussing plans to commit perjury for money. Your Honor, Tom addressed Judge Morrison. Mrs. Peterson has engaged in systematic fraud, perjury, and conspiracy. We're asking that all her claims be dismissed and that she be held liable for damages. Jessica's lawyer, Jennifer, tried to claim the recordings were illegal, but Tom was ready. Every recording was obtained legally with single-party consent. But then Tom dropped the nuclear bomb. Your Honor, I'd like to call a surprise witness, Sandra Williams, Mr. Brad Williams' legal wife. The courtroom went dead silent. Jessica's head snapped toward Brad, her face a mask of horror. Sandra Williams walked to the witness stand like she owned the place. Turns out, Brad had done this exact same thing before. His divorce from Sandra had never been finalized due to paperwork irregularities, which meant any marriage to Jessica would be bigamous. Mr. Williams used the same playbook on me, Sandra testified. Convinced me to divorce my first husband, promised to help me start a business with my settlement money, then disappeared with everything once the divorce was final. Jessica was staring at Brad like she'd never seen him before. Brad looked like he wanted to crawl under his chair and disappear. I've been tracking Mr. Williams' relationship with Mrs. Peterson, Sandra continued, because I suspected he was running the same con. I have evidence that he's been planning to abandon her immediately after accessing her divorce settlement. Tom presented Sandra's evidence. Text messages between Brad and another woman, booking confirmations for flights to Miami scheduled for February 16th, 2 days after the planned wedding, and bank records showing Brad had been moving money into offshore accounts. The man Jessica thought she was going to marry had been planning to rob her blind and disappear to another country. Judge Morrison called a recess, but the damage was catastrophic. When court reconvened, Jessica's case didn't just collapse, it imploded. All her claims were dismissed. She was ordered to pay my legal fees and return every penny she'd stolen from our accounts. Her real estate license was suspended pending criminal investigation, and the district attorney's office was opening a fraud case against both her and Brad. But Judge Morrison wasn't finished. Mrs. Peterson, he said, looking directly at Jessica, in 15 years on this bench, I've rarely seen such calculated deception. You've betrayed a faithful husband wasted court resources, and attempted to commit perjury for financial gain. Jessica was crying now, her perfect makeup running down her face. Our divorce was finalized that day, with Jessica getting absolutely nothing except criminal referral and crushing legal debt. But the perfect revenge was just getting started. February 14th, Valentine's Day, Jessica's planned wedding day. I was at my office when my sister Lisa called, laughing hysterically. "Mark, you're not going to believe this. Brad disappeared." "What?" "3 days ago. Just vanished without telling anyone, including his bride-to-be. Jessica's been calling everyone, frantically trying to find him." It got better. Brad had emptied their joint account, the one they'd opened expecting Jessica's divorce windfall, and used it to book his escape to Miami. Jessica was stuck with a wedding venue, catering, flowers, custom dress, and a $30,000 bill for a wedding that would never happen. But here's my favorite part. When Jessica tried to cancel everything, most vendors wouldn't refund her money because it was too late. She lost nearly everything she had left paying for her own humiliation. 6 months later, I heard Jessica had moved back in with her parents in another state. Her real estate license was permanently revoked. The criminal case resulted in probation and community service, but her reputation was destroyed. She was working as a restaurant hostess, driving a beat-up Honda because her BMW was repossessed. As for Brad, he was arrested in Miami 2 months later for running the same con on another woman. Turns out he'd been doing this for years. Serial marriage fraud was his actual career. He's currently serving 3 years in federal prison. And me? My business grew by 60% that year. Turns out when you're not being sabotaged by someone who's supposed to support you, amazing things can happen. I never remarried, but I learned something valuable. When people show you who they really are, believe them the first time. Jessica was right about one thing. I'm a nice guy. But she learned the hard way that nice doesn't mean weak, and kind doesn't mean stupid. The perfect revenge wasn't something elaborate I planned. It was simply stepping back and letting Jessica's own greed and Brad's predatory nature destroy them both. Sometimes karma doesn't need your help. It just needs you to get out of the way and let people dig their own graves. And sometimes, just sometimes, the timing is absolutely perfect. Jessica wanted to marry her affair partner 1 week after our divorce, thinking she'd gotten away with the perfect crime. Instead, she got the perfect punishment, discovering that the man she betrayed me for was planning to betray her in exactly the same way. They deserved each other, and they got exactly what they deserved. If you enjoyed this twisted tale, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because I've got more stories that'll make you question everything you think you know about trust, betrayal, and justice. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.